Okay, so we are live, and I have not done a Facebook Live like this in a little while. So I'm going to give you some of the things that I'm working on right now as it relates to my own investing business and some of the trends. Now, I just want to preface this: none of this is meant to be investing advice. For all I know, this could be a bad idea. However, it is something I've done a lot of research on, and I am actually I'm putting my money where my mouth is, if you will. And I'm actually I've got one project, I've got a second one under contract that we're working on, and so this is not just an idea. It's something that I've been putting a lot of effort and energy into, and sometimes I'm a little reluctant to share things that I think are potentially going to create more demand in the market and then compete with me. However, I think that this is a big enough opportunity. That's number one. And number two, this is like the first time I'm actually expanding my own investor database and talking to and potentially letting in new investors into some of the things that I'm working on. So, with all that said, let's get into. Oh, that's weird. Let's get into what it is that I've been kind of, beating around the bush on, and that is this concept called build to rent, or BTR. And if you're unfamiliar with build to rents, essentially what it is low to medium density rental accommodations. So if you think about the spectrum of where builders fall today, they generally fall in like, larger single family homes where maybe you've got 4 to 6 UPA. UPA is a units per acre. That's kind of a term that developers use. It could be more, it could be less, but that's generally what you're going to see in most residential developments, anywhere from kind of 36 to 50 feet of frontage. And then once you start taking in roads and other setbacks and all the rest of it, that's usually what you end up with. Now, the other end of the spectrum would be high density multifamily, right? And so, for example, the project that we're working on right now here in Calgary, it's inner city, great location, and the zoning allowed us to do, I believe it was 24 units. And my partner and I, we went back and forth on this particular lot several times, and eventually we said, you know what? Our thesis is that renters who want to rent, not necessarily that need to rent, but who want to rent, want bigger space. They want a home office. They might want a yard, for their pets and whatnot. They will stay longer. They will pay more, and they will treat the property better. Right? They're not going to be as hard on it. And I own apartment buildings, so this isn't theory. This is fact. And I also have a townhouse, and I know that the people that stay in my townhouse typically stay for, I don't know, probably 4 to 6 years on average. And people that rent my apartment building, I'm lucky if they last a year in many cases, maybe 18 months. So, and the turnover is, and the way that someone leaves it is very different. Okay. Not to say one is better than the other. It's just, it is what it is. And I think that if you're a landlord and you've rented for any amount of time, you know this. So maybe I'm not saying anything you don't know, but I'm just sharing some of what went into our thesis. Now, it's one thing to have a thesis. It's another thing to actually back it up with data. And this is the first time I'm sharing this. So, I'm just, forgive me, every once in a while, I'm going to look at my notes here. But one of the things that really stood out was of the G7 countries. Okay. And so the G7 countries would be like Canada, US, the UK, France, Germany, Italy, and Spain, I think, just going by memory. And of the G7 countries, Canada has the lowest housing units per 1,000 people. Okay. So in 2020, that number was 424. And I want to say the average is, I think, around 482, 484. Okay. So that might not sound like a lot, but this will hopefully give you some perspective. So in 2016, the average houses per 1,000 people in Canada was 427. Okay, so in the past 4 years, we've actually went from 427 to 424. That doesn't sound like a lot. However, when you multiply that over 38 million people, It means we're short by about 114,000 houses. Just to get to the average of the G7 countries of 480 some, we would need 1.8 million houses. Okay, so this is stats and data that you can research online. I got a lot of this out of one of Scotiabank's articles that they published, an economics paper. And so this is showing kind of the lack of supply. And then once you kind of layer in the demand factors with baby boomers and millennials specifically that are either downsizing or choosing to rent versus owning, you start to see this movement, if you will, into wanting more space, lower density. They don't want to be stuck. I'll give you a great example. So my parents, when they retired, both teachers, they moved to Airdrie to be closer to the family. Sorry, not Airdrie, Cochrane. I know I said Airdrie. So they moved to Cochrane. And when COVID hit and you had to self-isolate, my dad, that just drove him crazy, right? He was now stuck in 900 square feet, which before, when you could go outside and use the amenities, that was not an issue. But all of a sudden, it became a very big issue. And so they ended up selling about a year ago. They moved out to their place in Cape Breton. They built a house and they've got 5 acres. It's on the ocean. It's beautiful. Funny enough, they're actually flying back in to Calgary to finally spend a month with us, which is fabulous. But all that to say, this is obviously just one story, but I think it illustrates that with COVID and just the way that things are moving today, there is this push, and it's just been accelerated by COVID to want more space. So that's our theory. That's kind of what we're doing. To give you an example, the project that we've got right now, I don't know if I said this already. Like I wrote an email that I'm sending out to my audience here shortly. But so if I'm repeating myself, I apologize. The land that we bought, I think I mentioned this, we could have built 24 units, but we're only building 5 townhomes with 5 suited basement suites. So, call it 10 units, if you will. And why did we choose that? Well, there was a couple things that we liked about that model. First is, we already talked about the supply and demand, but the second part of it is risk, right? As soon as you start going 1 or 2 levels of underground for parking, it becomes, number one, very costly, and number two, it increases the risk factor for any developer. They will tell you once you get out of the ground, most of the unknowns and uncertainty have been taken out. So I can tell you, having only had to do 1 underground, and you start dealing with shoring and just the added costs that go into underground development, if you can avoid it, generally, I think developers would say that is something that they would strive for. So how long have I been going here? I've got to roll here pretty quick. Actually, I'm going to look at, as we're literally just tearing down the house that we have right now to start going vertical. We've got another 50 unit built to rent that's coming out probably in the new year. And so if that's something that's of interest, you want to learn more about it, just send me an email. My email is shane@shanemelanson.com. Hopefully that's only if you're interested. Don't, if you have other questions, happy to discuss it. But that's it. Hope this was useful, valuable. I'm going to go check out the development, and we'll see you next week. Bye for now.